Now, Alyssa doesn't want to be with that guy. She doesn't want to be around him. She doesn't like him. She's turned off by him. She's unnecessarily mean to him. She's gaslighting him. Why are you trying to put them together? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Shantia here. So if you're new to this channel is dedicated to helping women live in a way that feels the most natural to them. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my reviews for Made at First Sight or my inspirational videos where I talk about my life and I talk about my experiences. I like to come from a place of talking from experiences. However, for these reviews, I have not been married at first sight, so these are reviews. This is pure entertainment. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the review for season 14, episode 6 of Married at First Sight. This episode was titled Dark Side of the Honeymoon, and I'm sure it was mostly titled that for Alyssa's sake. I think she was carrying most of that dark side with her the entire time. In episode 6, the couples were enjoying their last bit of their honeymoon, and they're getting ready to move into their apartments. So now reality's starting to hit just a little bit, it's starting to sink in a little bit, and they're starting to have those serious conversations about the future, about their expectations for one another. For this review, I'm going to start out with Lindsay and Mark, move on to Elijah, Juan, and Katina, then Alyssa and Chris, talk about Jasmina and Michael, and then end on a sweet note with Noi and Steve. So in the opening scene between Lindsay and Mark, they were actually cuddling in bed, and I was actually surprised because if y'all remember in the previous episodes, they ended with a huge blow up, a huge argument. Lindsay was really upset with Mark because he had been telling her, he had been prepping her for romance. They had consummated their marriage and they had been intimate multiple times that day, only for him to tell her, hey, I want to slow things down. Lindsay is very much an emotional person. She doesn't hide anything. So if she's upset, you're going to know she's upset. You know, this is one thing I have to say is a compliment when it comes to people with a lot of emotion, people with big personalities, is that you'll never have to guess what they're feeling because they'll let you know. However, they may not necessarily leave space for you to feel your emotions. Made up within about like an hour of having that whole blow up. I think they both cooled off, came back together, had a calm adult conversation. She communicated to him, he listened to her, and then communicated back to her. They are both able to get back on the same page. What I think Lindsay and Mark displayed perfectly in this episode was the maturity to set aside their egos. I think Lindsay and Mark have been in enough relationships for them to have practiced that, to know the importance to maintaining a relationship, let alone a marriage, is you're gonna have to set aside these egos. You're gonna have to set aside the pettiness so that we can learn how to be on the same page. We can learn how to be on the same team. I think something that Jasmina and Michael are really struggling with. I really give kudos to Mark. I feel like throughout this entire episode, he was really shining through in terms of his stand-up character. He really just seemed like a patient guy. That's one of the reasons as to why I didn't really appreciate Lindsay's big reaction to him upsetting her, because he seems like the type of person you can pull over to the side, you can let him know what's up, and he'll listen. Instead, she reacted as opposed to responded. Now you're kind of having to ring in all of that energy. Forget about like relationships. Whenever you fight, when you bring that big reaction into any kind of discussion or conflict, it's a little bit of trauma to the body. When Lindsay is reacting so emotionally, she's so in her emotional body, she's also activating trauma, reactivating it, and you're reliving all your fears in that moment. So it's just best to not have such a strong reaction to something. Try to cool off as quick as you can, let it go so it doesn't stay in your body. Later on, there's a scene with them having breakfast and they decided to have a discussion about religion. And I think having that discussion about religion is really important. I think religion and your belief system is a huge deal breaker. She talked about the Greek Orthodox. He talked about, I think he's of a Christian background. He talked about prayer. They both were willing to and thought about and consider how would they raise their kids. These are great discussions to have if you're going to be in a real partnership with someone, in a long-lasting partnership with someone. She even prayed with him when he asked her to pray. So I thought that was really endearing to see that. I also think that's kind of a big deal. You know, your belief system, religion is your belief system, so it does color every aspect of your life. So if someone is really turned off by it or they're really in disagreement about it, that's going to be concerning. Your belief system also especially colors the way that you raise your kids. So if your spouse is against it, how are you going to be in agreement with how you raise your kids? Your kids are going to grow up in a conflicting, disharmonious house. So apparently Steve is having issues with bed bugs, and his landlord was actually harassing him, which I'm like, that is so rude. That is so rude. He's on his honeymoon. Like, leave the guy alone. So she's harassing him about bed bugs. She's changing the lease. I actually asked my dad about that, and he's like, doesn't sound legal. It doesn't sound legal for a landlord to just up and change a lease, but I don't know if his lease was ending and then she's allowed to change it. I have no idea. But apparently his landlord also has like she's a mother figure in his life. There's obviously more to the story than we're being informed of or that Mark is fully revealing. Why is this woman treating him like that? Are the women in his life just treat him like that? Do family just treat him like that? He's talked about exes before, and he has issues with his mom as well. It makes me curious to know if this is a continuous pattern in his life with women. Throughout this entire episode, for the most part, Mark and Lindsay were unproblematic. They're having sweet moments. After they made up, everything de-escalated and they just got along. They were together. They were on the same page. They were enjoying each other's company. The only thing I think that is of concern is now that Mark has the bed bug issue, Lindsay has offered for him to move his stuff into her place. She's gonna help, support him in this experience, and then he can move some of the stuff into the temporary place as well. The only thing to be concerned with is Lindsay gonna bring back the thunderstorm 24/7? Because if she's gonna continually bring back that thunderstorm, he's gonna need plan A, B, and C to back him up with being prepared. Like, I think he should definitely be prepared for things not working out because, well, first of all, she's a stranger, right? He's only known her for 6 days. I just hope he is proactive in planning something else other than moving his stuff into her place. I think another, flag and warning sign is that she's referred to her exes as liars, cheaters, and stealers, men that she willingly chose to date and be in relationships with. I do think Lindsay is a giver. I also think Mark is a giver. However, I also think sometimes when people have so much trauma and they are givers, it's not necessarily that they attract people who are going to take from them. Sometimes they project that onto people. In this case, I feel like when it comes to Lindsay and Mark, we've really seen those wounds or those traumas kind of come up to the surface, especially on Lindsay's part. We've seen those wounds come up. And in your partnerships, because relationships are so intimate, they amplify and they mirror back all of those insecurities, fears, and traumas that you're having to resolve and heal. Now, no one ever gets into a partnership fully healed. We're always having to do work. We're always having to do some kind of inner work. If you're willing to do the work, partnerships lend themselves to an advantage and they can actually help you heal faster. But if you resist it, you're actually just going to become wound mates together and you're going to constantly just fight and bicker and create disharmony between one another, and it's going to be super draining. If they're both willing to see what needs to be worked on, that'll be great. Lindsay talked about how her ex broke up with her during like couple counseling or something like that. She's sought counseling before. I'm just hoping, does she listen? Because sometimes when people are so strong in their ways, which it sounds like she is, you have to be somewhat flexible, and especially in marriage, you have to be very flexible. You have to be willing and wanting to change and transform. One of the things that I've heard people say in this show a lot is that they want someone to spend the rest of their lives with, but also you want someone who's gonna make you a better person, and guess what? You are gonna get someone. I can guarantee you're going to get someone who's gonna make you a better person. It depends on you. Do you want to become a better person or not? That determines the outcome of how successful your relationship is when it comes to helping you evolve. I wish the best for Lindsay and Mark. I think they're off to a somewhat good start. I just give props to Mark. I feel like he has a lot of patience. He's a stand-up guy. He's very considerate and he's very level-headed. He's always going to be a very stable figure for Lindsay. I just need Lindsay to also be that for him consistently. Okay, moving on to Elijahwan and Katina. So in the opening scene, Elijahwan was cuddling with Katina in bed. He actually skipped his workout just so he could cuddle with her because he's like, this is what my wife wants. I want to give her what she wants. What I really like about Elijahwan is he's an action guy. He takes action, and that actually showcases his masculinity. When you take action and your wife says, hey, this is what I like, and you do it, that makes you I think, in my opinion, a very masculine partner. He takes action, he heeds what she says, and he's willing to offer that back to her. So I appreciate his consideration, his generosity in that sense, his listening skill, and it's gonna help to serve them moving forward. In the next scene, the two of them go on a horse ride together. I love it when people are put in stressful situations, because stressful situations really shows you, it brings out the annoyance, it brings out the conflict, and it shows you how you resolve conflict. In this case, I felt like they resolved it really well. During the horse ride, Katina actually got annoyed because she felt very uncomfortable on the horse, and she said she's actually not a fan of animals, and to each his own. Elijah, however, is more an adventure. He wants to go, he wants to have fun. He was kind of pushing her a little bit, and I think guys, period, will always do that. They will always kind of push you because that's what they do. You know, they think about little boys, they kind of like to agitate just a little bit. It's just the way that they play. Neither her nor him like got so rowdy or so upset about the situation. They continued to communicate while they were on the horse, and then they had a conversation later off the horse. So Katina, throughout this entire episode, I think really surprised me. She's very self-aware, she's very good at communicating her emotions, and she came off as just like such a life coach. She was giving people advice, she was being very insightful about things, she was trying to give Alyssa advice. I don't know if Alyssa wants to hear anyone's advice. I think because she is so good at communicating and has that ability to communicate her emotions, that's gonna help, especially with Elijah, who is almost in a sense like an over communicator. He's just very talkative. He has a lot to say. I think she'll be able to hold her own with him. I think that is a very strong self-aware skill to have, because sometimes we have feelings, we have thoughts and ideas, but we don't know how to communicate that. And I think Mirla is a very good example of someone who doesn't necessarily know how to communicate all of her emotions or feelings very directly, you know, when the timing is right. Later on in the scene, Michael and Jasmina, Katina and Elijah were sitting across from one another. Michael referred to Elijah as an alpha male. An alpha male. Now, that's not exactly the title I would give to him. I know the alpha male is up to, the idea of the alpha male is up to interpretation, and everyone has their own perspective or idea of how they see an alpha male. I would say in this case, Elijah to me doesn't fit that description very well because of the lack of maturity. Age and time and experience is going to give him that maturity. So long as he continues to bring in that determination, which I think has served him well in business and other areas of success, I think he's going to find that maturity. But that also gave me some insight into Michael's head, because, you know, Michael's, his brother, he had a brother, his mother, his father, and his grandmother all passed away in his lifetime. It sounds like he hasn't had that primary role model in his life there to show him how to be a man, so he's kind of stumbling through the experience. Perhaps his idea of an alpha male is off, so to speak. You know, I think maybe some men, they see an alpha male as someone who's a go-getter, who is dominant, who's outgoing, who seems like they know themselves. But I think there are other attributes, like the softer attributes, like maturity, knowing when to be vulnerable. You know, there are certain other qualities I think that go into being an alpha male. It's not just those guys who are go-getters and who know how to be successful. It's also those guys who know how to have and maintain healthy partnerships too, I think, and who know how to give to their tribe, give to their community. Michael also mentioned that Elijah can be too much. And I think we all know this. Again, because Elijah seems to have a really good level of self-awareness, I think he can work through this. At this point, I think Elijah and Katina they're vibing together. Realistically, they make sense as to, you know, they're only 6 days into the partnership. Realistically, they make sense to me. They make sense as to where they're at in their partnership. So long as they continue to put in the work and communicate with one another, they can actually be successful. Moving on to Alyssa and Chris. Now, Alyssa and Chris were taking way too much TV time. I'm going to try to rush through this, but I actually did take a lot of notes because they showed so much of Alyssa and Chris. First episode opens up with the tennis appearance, and of course the experts are saying, well, you know, because the couples are having issues connecting, we've arranged an activity for them. Now, Alyssa doesn't want to be with that guy. She doesn't want to be around him. She doesn't like him. She's turned off by him. She's unnecessarily mean to him. She's gaslighting him. Why are you trying to put them together? Now, I did ask in my previous review, like, is this like a contracted thing? And the discussion she had with the producers, in which they were telling her to make up her mind when it came to wanting to be there and wanting to be at the apartment, makes me think they do have a choice and they're not contractually obligated to be there. So why is Alyssa there? My opinion is that she likes the attention. She likes all the goodies she gets. She likes the attention of the producers giving her what she wants. She likes people listening to her. She likes people listening to her whining. She feeds off of that attention, and That is really concerning if that is the case. In this opening scene, Chris mentioned that they were a good fit on paper and that she really seems to be a fun-loving person. Now, those are really wonderful compliments to give to Alyssa, but Chris, are you looking at the same girl that we're looking at? Like, who? Is it the attraction? Is it because you feel attracted to her that you're willing to see past all of the messed up stuff? And maybe he is. Maybe he is, because later on he had that discussion about,
if I get anything that's not 0 back, then this is worth working on.
Every single person deserves 100%. You might get 85. You might get 90. On a bad day, you might get 70. But no one should be getting 1% or not 0 or 0.01%. And if that's what you're asking for, that does make me look at you and ask and question, like, what have your partnership experiences been like thus far? So far, she's just kind of proved to be difficult. She's throwing tantrums, she's having fits. She even commented on his aggressive gestures, and the producers are like, he's just doing hand gestures. Like, what do you want us to do? Like, what are you asking? So later in the evening, when she was having a discussion with the producers, I give props to one of the producers. He was Black. I remember that. And I love that he said that. He said that this is not single at first sight. This is married at first sight. So you have to make up your mind and you have to make it up quick. And I love that he hit her with that comment, because that makes me think, okay, they're not contractually obligated. And also, can we vote her off the island? Because I think I'm ready to vote her off the island. Or is this the wrong show for that? Mark mentioned when Mark and Lindsay were having a discussion with Chris, you know, they were trying to be supportive of him. Mark mentioned that Chris fits all the thing that is great from marriage. And I would have to agree. I think some women do look for unnecessary things when they're looking for partners. See, that's why you're dating and you're not married, you're not engaged, because you're not looking for a marriage partner. Chris is a marriage partner. You may look at him physically and be like, well, he doesn't have abs. Is he stable? Is he reliable? Is he level-headed? Is he considerate? Does he want to bring romance? Does he care about what you think? Like, those outweigh the six-pack. Katina also mentioned that she felt like Chris was very straightforward. He was being very straightforward with how he was communicating things. And she was like, hey, Alyssa, do you understand what he's saying? Alyssa doesn't care. Alyssa lives in Alyssa's world. But Chris has been very direct. He noted that she gaslighted him. He noted that she's been rude to him. Like, what else does he need? So I don't know why Chris thinks 1% is okay. I don't know why that is the case. I'm getting kind of I'm getting mixed signals from Chris. I don't know what it is. I was thinking maybe there's a competitiveness. Maybe he needs for her to give him the answer he wants or the response that he wants so that he can somehow win, or I don't know, so it ends in the way that he wants it to. I have no idea. What I do know is that in the past, when people have not worked out, they just disappear like a ghost. I just don't understand why that can't happen. Like, why put yourself through the heartache of this? You know, we're watching Alyssa on TV. By the way, producers, we don't care for all the drama. We watch the show for the romance. We don't watch it for the drama, okay? So please, less of Alyssa, less of all of that. Let's focus on the couples who actually care about putting in work. So Alyssa brought up this idea that they would share the apartment. And he's like, we're not going to treat it like divorced parents. He just seems like a smart guy. He knows what's going on. I just don't understand why he's just not up and leaving. Throughout this episode, Alyssa kept saying, this is not my fault. That's not my fault. I'm a good person. I'm not a bad person. Sounds like a guilty conscience to me. Who are you trying to prove, girl? Who are you trying to prove? The irony is, just by doing that, she's just proving the very thing that she fears. Chris and Alyssa definitely aren't going to make it. I mean, I'm not sure if I've heard anyone be as mean as Alyssa has been on this show before, but she's up there. However, at this point, I don't really care about watching her. I fast forward through one scene. I will probably fast forward through any other scene with Alyssa because I just don't care. You know, I thought maybe there's more to it. He's giving me mixed signals. Maybe he is another person to her behind the scenes. I don't know, but she does sound like she's kind of off her rocker. Her opinion seems very biased and mean, and very mean girl-ish. So I can't really look to her as a reliable source for information. Do I wish the best for Alyssa and Chris? I wish the best for Alyssa and Chris separately. Moving on to Jasmina and Michael. One of the scenes that open up with Jasmina and Michael is that they are sitting across from Elijah and Katina, and they were having this discussion about why did the experts pair them together. Now, they keep saying they have things in common. Jasmina even mentioned apparently they have all things in common. And Elijah commented back, hey, you guys really look good together. We're all kind of feeling a bit of a disconnect. I'm not feeling any energy between the two of them. Sometimes they touch each other, like they're affectionate physically, and it's random, and I'm just like, Is there like affection going on that we don't know about? I think Michael kind of confirmed that's not the case. He said the two of them together are very opinionated. He also said that they've had more difficult and hard discussions together than they have lighthearted and funny. And I'm just like, how? It's only been 6 days. Like, how are you guys having so many hard discussions already? That goes to show maybe the lack of preparation, the readiness for what is expected of you in a partnership. You know, setting aside the egos. People always say they want the fun, but you have to bring the fun. You have to be the fun. You have to be the romance in order to have and experience the romance in the partnership. The entire thing is bizarre, right? You know, you're married at first sight. You're the 1.001% people who are ever going to go through this experience ever. You might as well laugh at it, laugh at everything. And the fact that they have more difficult discussions, and he noted that, I don't know if he's also projecting to some extent, but the fact that he noted that, to me, goes to show he doesn't really know how to bring that romance. That's maturity in relationships. You know how to bring in the fun, bring in the romance. You know how to lighten things up. It's not that it just happens on its own. You have to be a part of that experience. One thing I've noticed is that I haven't really seen or heard Michael compliment Jasmina. Now, maybe he's doing it behind the scenes and we're just not seeing it. However, I've seen a lot of the other men compliment their wives, and even with behind the scenes when they're talking to the producers, they compliment their wives. But I'm like, first of all, Jasmina is obviously gorgeous. Every morning I'll be telling her how gorgeous she is, because it's fact. She's just gorgeous. I think women do need affirmations. I'll talk about this again when it comes to knowing Steve. Compliment your wife. I think Jasmina should also be complimenting him too. Compliment him too. Both of them just need to kind of lighten up, to compliment each other, to romance each other, enjoy each other's company, and let go of these technicalities, these technical discussions that sound like war negotiations. Set them aside. Just be together. Be in your body and be present and enjoy one another. Yes, it seems pretty obvious that they have communication issues, but I think they have communication issues because they're focused on the wrong thing. You know, you don't have to talk about all of these, you know, little technicalities about what's right, what's wrong, or how we see things. It seems like they're having a lot of hypothetical disagreements between the two of them, getting caught up on petty stuff. Like, set aside the petty stuff. Jasmina apparently says that he has been aggressive. We haven't seen that side of Michael, so I have no idea what that looks like. I don't know if she's projecting onto him. However, if that is the case, and she supposedly can't have this, you know, civil conversation with him, then he really needs to work on that. Later, they're at the waterfall. They're enjoying one another. Michael brings up that he was bullied when he was like, I think in the 6th grade. He was sitting on the seat on the bus, and this guy comes up and says, "Hey, that's my seat," and just starts beating him up. Now, Little Black Book 91 on his panel discussion said that this was Michael testing her. And I think he was absolutely right, because after he talked about the story, laughed that he had trauma and experienced trauma or gotten trauma from that experience, he also asked her for a hug. Can I get a hug? So he was looking for a reaction or response, or an emotional response from her. You know, Michael has mentioned that he has issues with the vulnerability. The vulnerability isn't talking about hard things that you've gone through in life. Vulnerability is the experience of opening up your emotions. It's about being in tune with your emotions. It's about feeling your emotions. That entire time he was telling that story, it was like there's a little bit of a numbness or a detachment from it. There's no emotion. If you're talking about you were traumatized or you were bullied, I want you to really pour your heart out. Like, put your emotion into your words and talk about how difficult that was, or maybe say that really changed how confident I felt as a man. Look at her in the eyes and tell her this. He was very awkward about how he said it, how he brought it up. To get and elicit an emotional connection, you have to put emotion into your words. You have to feel it in your body. If you're wanting to detach yourself from trauma, if you're not wanting to feel it, if you're too scared to feel it, then it's really hard for people to connect with you. Later on, when they were having a discussion with all the couples, Michael brought up about how the one thing that they were struggling with in their relationship was that he has to work on his communication style, that he can get aggressive, and that this is what he said. He said, "There's a way for me to tell my wife, you're hurting me." It was those choice of words that kind of like piqued my ears, because I'm like, she's hurting you? She's hurting you? Have you guys known each other long enough to be hurting each other? That makes me think, and this is my intuition speaking, he does have a lot of healing to do. When you're not healed to the point where you're self-aware enough not to project your issues onto your spouse, they're gonna have to walk you through. They're gonna have to display extra patience they're gonna have to set aside their emotions so that you can kind of work through your trauma. It sounds like his trauma is going like this. So I think ultimately you want it to go like this. You want to alchemize it. You want to transform it. You want to transmute it. But if it keeps just spinning round and round, being able to articulate and discuss your trauma is one thing, but a lot of people see therapists, that doesn't heal them. It's the ability to have the insight to understand what that trauma was and break free of the pattern. Now we're engaging in a new pattern. We're being self-aware and we're changing the course. I think he's very intelligent, but I think the emotional body, he needs to get in his emotional body a lot more and to connect with himself in that way. I also think Jasmina has also been kind of cold throughout, and she can bring some more emotion. I think she is turned off. Some people have mentioned that there perhaps is not enough attraction between the two of them. I don't know for his case. I don't know. He's hard to read. Like, he doesn't, and that's actually kind of problematic, is your wife should obviously know if you're attracted to her. You should be telling her. And her, the same thing. He should know that she's attracted to him. She should be saying that. But the thing is, they're not really saying that. If anything, they could have those discussions like, oh, you're attracted, you're beautiful, and that would lighten the mood between the two of them. But I don't know if that's what they're doing. It doesn't really seem like it. I wish the best for Jasmina and Michael. I just don't know with them. I'm not really feeling the energy, so we will see how their relationship continues to evolve moving forward. Michael did mention that while they're at the waterfall, that was the first time she smiled. And again, it just makes me think this idea of like, why aren't you trying to make her smile? I don't think he knows how to. Like, I don't think he knows. I think he's clueless. He doesn't know how to make her smile or laugh or have fun. He's kind of stumbling through the experience. And I think to be able to make a woman laugh or to make someone laugh, you just have to be confident in yourself and confident in your humor and just own it. Moving on to Noi and Steve. So Noi and Steve are just absolutely so cute together. I just want them to live happily ever after. However, we have an issue. Steve, you need plan A, B, and C. We need to see plan A, B, and C. Then you guys can settle down and have kids. Okay? So that's one of the issues. Now, one of the opening scenes between Noi and Steve is that they went to the waterfall. They had their little adventure. Steve, at first, he expressed that he was disappointed that she seemed a little apprehensive about it and nervous. And he is a natural adventurer and free spirit. So he wants to have those experiences with his wife. Thankfully, Noi says yes. She goes for it, even though they have to climb over the rock, through the grass, through the forest, in the water. They have to do all of that. She's willing to try it. This is just a really wonderful example of why we get into partnerships. You can be single all by yourself and you can do whatever you want to do, but we get into partnerships so we can also learn how to expand our view of being human. You know, this is your opportunity to be with someone else who thinks differently, who sees the world differently, and you get to multiply your happiness and your joy by experiencing it through their lens. Why not take the opportunity to learn about someone else's way of life and enjoy that now? As far as going camping goes, like, why do we go camping, right? Why do we put up with the bugs and the mosquitoes? We do it for you, okay? We do it for love, right? And I think Noi gets that. She's gonna do it for love because that girl has hearts in her eyes. She's gonna do it for love. However, I hope she is smart and also logistically understands that they have to be compatible when it comes to finances and the future and the vision for how they want to live their lives. Noi's and Steve's adventure in the rainforest was a really good example of trust. So while they were both in the water and he was telling her to lean back so that she could feel the water in her ears, this was a trust experience. This was her showcasing and practicing her trust. And I appreciate that about her. I felt like Noi's and Steve interaction in the water was very symbolic of where their relationship is at. Later on, she went on to say that she felt safe and loved by him. So she does trust him and they are building trust between one another. And then the fish bit Steve, and that was hilarious. I was laughing so hard at that. I thought that was so cute. And I love how they just like live in the moment. They laugh it up. They enjoy humor. They enjoy life. Again, this is so vital, I think, to keeping the spark in your relationships and just in life in general, is bring that humor into it. Infuse humor into your day-to-day life. Afterwards, they were like hugging and cuddling, and Steve mentioned to the producers that though Noi was apprehensive because she was willing to go out and have that adventure with him, he felt like he really had a special wife because she was willing to try. There is no lack of affection between the two of them. I feel like they definitely make for, I think, the lack of chemistry that I'm feeling with the other couples, and I really appreciate that. We want the romance, okay? I think Steve expresses himself very well while they're sitting down at the table with the other couples talking about their experiences. He was talking about how he's very physical with his love. That's how he shows his love, is through physicality, when he embraces her, how he touches her. Oh, it sounded like something straight out of a romance novel. I thought it was so sweet when he said that. It's so important to know what your love language is, but it's also important to acknowledge what your partner's love language is. If she feels love through affirmations, then you got to give those affirmations, because that's how she's going to receive your love. But you get to enjoy giving your love through physical touch as well. So it's important to, yes, acknowledge your love language, but also acknowledge your partner's love language as well. Find that balance. That is the end of the review. If you guys want to support the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss my reviews. Also, you can hit the like button as well, and you can comment down below. I love to share in the discussions for Married at First Sight. I mean, this is my show, okay? This is my one reality TV show. You know what? Not one, because I'm watching Love is Blind now, but this is one of the few reality TV shows that I actually watch and can take. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day or evening. Bye.